Hello, my dear friends. I am talking to my friend, Beck Power. She's in Bangkok right now. Hey, Beck, what's up?
Hey Connie, what is going on?
Uh, Not a lot here in California. So, Beck is the founder of Nomad Fly and Idea Hustle. But I don't really want to talk too much. Beck and I, we met in, when was that, October last year, 2016,
Mhm.
at the 7 and
Yeah,
7 conference, the conference for digital nomads. And Beck's a digital nomad. Da 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 da. And
yeah.
yeah, so now we're here because she's doing a lot of really awesome stuff with her online business. She has a lot of really cool shit in the pipeline. She's a fucking hustler, and I love hustlers. And yeah, power woman. So I got her here because we want to talk about how to go from idea to execution and actually build a business, because I know and Beck knows that that's where a lot of people get stuck, is usually in the very beginning. And so anyway, Beck, thanks for coming on the line with me. And just who are you? Do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and what you do and what is Nomad Fly and Idea Hustle and all these things?
Yeah, I do. Cool. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here talking about this stuff. Um, so yeah, I guess I'm from New Zealand originally, and I left New Zealand about nearly 4 years ago. And I thought that I would just like leave and figure it out later. I'm kind of like a starter without knowing what I'm doing. And then I just sort of figure things out, and they've seemed to work out okay. But for like probably the whole, or like at least 3 years of that time, was me like struggling a lot. So I really know the struggle of people who are starting out to be digital nomads, because having left without like any savings whatsoever, I think I had 600 New Zealand dollars, like 450 American dollars. I was
Seriously.
like, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, it'll be fine. I'll just like go and I could build what my skills at that time were. I could build like a basic WordPress site, and I could, I was like, I could do copywriting or things. I just worked things out as I go, and it didn't really pan out as I hoped originally.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent about 3 years of my life just bumming around like Southeast Asia and Australia, living really, really cheaply. And so I started to get like this cheap mindset, and I was like, oh, I can't afford this, I can't afford that, I don't know what I'm going to do. I never really had the confidence to build something of my own during that time. And it was really just because I thought that I wasn't qualified, and also I didn't know if it was going to work, right? I didn't want to fail, because obviously we all have like friends and stuff. I had all these people at home that I'd told that I was going to go out and make it. And I was like, oh God, like this is like really embarrassing. I thankfully never had to like, fly home and with my tail between my legs or anything. But yeah, I just only just was making it work, like scraping by for a long time. And so anyways, long story short, there's a lot of stories in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I, in June of last year, so yeah, May or June, I started Nomad Fly, and I started it after I read Dan Norris's book. I don't know if you've read it. It's called 7 Day Startup,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and it's a really good book. And I think I'd actually read it before, but I was reading it again, and I was like, I this was kind of like my epiphany, right? I always read books and read blogs and listen to audio stuff, podcasts, watch videos, and I don't actually take any action. So I was like, I'm so like, I think that everyone, maybe not everyone, but definitely for me, I got sick of myself and my own excuses. And I was just like, it was almost disgusting. I was
That's
like,
awesome.
I'm like, I was horrified at how like pathetic I was being. I was like, everyone else is, well, it seemed to me, right? Everyone else was making money and having success. And I was like, I'm not like I'm weird, but there's nothing actually wrong with me that I can't make money. Like, I don't know why this isn't happening. So I decided that I would just make the commitment to start, just to do it. Even if it failed, I didn't care. I was like, it's 7 days. At that time, I had like $2 in my account. My rent was going to be due. I was like, what am I doing? My back was against the wall. So I was like, okay, just do it. So I basically just had to make myself do it. And I have no idea what I would have done if I hadn't, because I couldn't afford rent. So I was like, all right, let's do this. I sent out, there's a whole, whole story of how I started Nomad Fly. But I ended up starting it, and
what is Nomad Fly exactly?
Sure. So on day one of the 7-day startup, Dan asks you to write down a bunch of different like thoughts or ideas that you've had in the past, or things that you might be good at, or you're like wondering if it would work. You write down a bunch of those kinds of things. Now, everyone, even if you don't think you do have a couple of things that you've got in the back of your mind. Maybe you just know the niche. Maybe you really like competitive swimming or gardening, or maybe you know, travel is the thing, or maybe I don't know, whatever it is, there's at least, you might not have a whole business plan, but you probably got a niche picked out. And so I wrote down one of mine, and I used to be a travel agent back about 5 years ago. And I was pretty good as a travel agent. I had like some skills. And so I kind of left it because I wasn't that interested in booking trips for people anymore. So I didn't see how it would work as a business. But you know what? I don't care. I need to do something. That's a thing. Maybe I don't love it right now, but I don't know what it would look like. So I'm just going to start something and do it. And so Nomad Fly was born out of that idea of instead of booking things for people, I used the strategies that I would use, and now I show people how to find cheap stuff and find, like, I give them a bunch of resources and also a bunch of different ways of thinking about booking travel. And so for me, that worked out really, really well, because I can save people hundreds of dollars just in a few minutes of explaining even the first concept. So Nomad Fly is essentially a course, an online course, showing people how to find their own cheap flights, and it's also like a collection of resources for people who want to travel cheaply.
Cool. And how, maybe you can talk a little bit more about the actual process of how, so like from the very beginning, okay, you're like, okay, my skill is I'm a travel agent, to, oh, here I am having an online course teaching people how to book cheap flights. Like, what was in the middle there?
Well, I feel like it was, at the beginning, just a mindset shift. So it was that thing, it was the commitment that I made, that like, you know what, I have to make this work. I'm going to give it a go. And it's kind of like, when you, you might say, it's similar to saying, I'm not going to eat beef. Or I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm like, it's these things that we say that we're going to do, and we say it, and I've said it about businesses loads of times. I've said it about eating beef. I've said it about going to the gym. You say these things, and in the back of your mind, quite a lot of the time, it's like, but like I want to, but I might not go on like a Tuesday, or I might eat beef. What if I go to this great noodle place that I love? They only have beef. I'd have to eat beef then. It's like all these little justifications that are still in the back of our minds. And so it's not a real commitment, is it? It's like a semi-commitment. And what happened in my brain when I decided to do Nomad Fly was like, I do not care what happens. I'm making this thing happen. Like, this is going to be a thing. I don't care if only 3 people buy it, if no one buys it. I'm putting all of my effort into this. If I look like an idiot, then that's fine. I look like an idiot. That's going to have to happen. And so at the beginning, it was definitely the commitment that made the difference. But it really, once I'd done that, it wasn't that hard to start. You just have to take the steps. And every time you take a new step and take a new action, the next step shows up.
And
so for me,
yeah, keep going.
For me, what that looked like was just contacting people and asking them if they were interested in getting cheap flights. Of course, everyone says yes, they are, because who's not? And then I was like, oh, like this is some major amazing moment.
I'm so glad you made this course, because I get so many people ask me about cheap flights. So I'm just like, just go to Beck and buy a course, fuck's sake.
Yeah. And I have a lot of people asking me, can you find me a cheap flight? And I'm like, no, like I don't have time to do that now. Here's the thing that I created, because I do get that so often. And now people can find their own stuff, and they save hundreds of dollars, not just on that flight. Like, I could find you a cheap flight, but then you'd be in the same position next time. But they learn how to do it now, and then they can just do that forever. So it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. So how did you know, though, that you wanted to build an online course around the skill that you had, basically, that you wanted to share with other people? You wanted to empower other people to find their own flights, but How'd you know you didn't want to, like you said, you didn't want to do consulting or anything. You wanted to put it into an information product.
Well, when I first started, I didn't know that.
Right.
Like I said, I'm like a big fan of just jumping into things without knowing what I'm doing. So when I first started it, I just charged people $9 for something. And to be honest with you, Connie, at that time, I didn't know what I was going to deliver. I was like, well, someone paid $9, and then the money was coming in my account, and I was like, holy crap, I need to create something. What should I do? So I made like an email course thing that was like 10 emails.
Right.
And then I was like, how's that? And then people were doing the course, and I was like, well, $9 isn't going to last me very long. How about I make it into like some sort of online, I could do different modules for each of those 10 emails. Okay, well, let's give that a try. And then I put the price up to 25.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I added more modules, I was like, this is really valuable. And people were like, I saved $300. And I was like, well, that's pretty good for a $25 product. How about I put it up to, $50? And then as I added more stuff, I just realized the value that I was bringing to people. And then, and that's kind of brought it to where it is today. But at the time I started, I didn't know what I was doing. So I just went along.
So you basically did I don't know what the strategy is called, but you essentially asked people for money before the actual product didn't even exist.
Pre-selling, absolutely. I still recommend that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's awesome. And then I love it when people do that. I don't think I've done it, no. But it's something I'd like to try out one day. So what was the time investment? So let's say you started with those 10 emails and then you turned it into an online course. I mean, was this like a full-time thing? Were you still, were you working with clients? Like, were you freelancing at the same time? Like, what are people looking at to build something like that?
Well, at that time when I did that, like I said, I had very little money, and I had just gone through this like really awful breakup. And so I just couldn't get myself in a position to like, confidently get more clients or there's, when you just, it's kind of, I don't know, like a personal thing to admit, but I just didn't have any confidence whatsoever to bring in cash. So the fact that I did this during that time it was really only because it was so necessary. It was born out of necessity more than anything else.
Right. So time. Sorry, the question was what was the time investment in terms of how many hours did you put into like building the first product of like 10 emails or creating the online course?
Well, because I had like no previous knowledge or had made no plan of what I was going to do, it was quite time intensive. Now I like to make a real strategy before I get started on something like that, and that saves like weeks of time.
Right.
That time I spent probably a month by myself in my apartment just working on like trying to figure out how the email autoresponder thing worked. And I tried 3 different ones and had to set them up and then cancel them, and had to work it in with, one was $9 a month, and then I moved to one that was $29 a month, and I had to like shuffle funds around because I just was like trying to, so it was pretty time intensive at the beginning for sure. And now I recommend definitely having like a planning process so you know what you're doing in advance.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. So you really did it like, I don't know, I bet like faking it till you're making it. You just kind of went, like you just learning as you went kind of, right?
Yeah.
And so you did that. And then what happened then? Because that was last year, yeah?
Yeah.
It's about 6 months ago.
Around that time, after I did that, I had this like idea that I wanted to do an online summit, a virtual summit, because it really gave me a lot of confidence, right? Having people that give you money and they don't know you is like a real confidence boost. When you get your first sale, I'm sure you can remember when you got your first sale, and you're just like so excited. And I thought, I can do anything. I'm gonna do a virtual summit. And so I went to Vietnam actually, because I didn't have that much money from Nomad Fly because I just started and I was learning about marketing and everything. But I went to Vietnam and I spent a month filming video interviews with people. I got to interview like James Altucher and Jason Zook and Steve Olsher and
That's awesome.
A lot of my favorite people. It was really, really cool. And it was about how to launch your ideas, because I realized that I had been onto something with the Nomad Fly thing. I was like, I need to find out more about how this could work. How can you make money from ideas? So I did this whole summit. I interviewed like 25 people. And then when I launched that, I didn't want to just launch it. If you know anything about virtual summits, you usually buy something at the end, and it's almost always just all the videos at once and maybe a Facebook community. And I remember thinking, like, I need to offer something else. I feel like these videos are really great, but I feel kind of like a chump just offering these videos that I already had for, given away for free. Who's going to buy them? And then they just buy them and that's it. I need some sort of something more fun to offer people, right? Because I was really, you can probably tell, I'm really excited about ideas and launching stuff. So I was talking to a friend who had bought the actual summit thing. Or he'd already agreed to buy it or something. He knew he wanted to buy it. And he said, what about if you implement some of the ideas from the actual interviews? So, I mean, I'd interviewed like Lise Cartwright. She wrote 7 books in 7 weeks.
Wow.
And I interviewed Matt Giovanisci, and he does like 30-day challenges where he, challenges himself to get a sponsor for his podcast or do different things. And someone else had done, I don't know, there was a lot of people that I could imagine doing those kinds of challenges. And so I thought, that's a great idea. I'm going to get all these people who buy the videos and put them in a group, and then we're all going to work on these challenges and launch our ideas quickly. Or, so if we have a new idea, we've got like a recipe from these people that I interviewed to launch it quickly. Or if you don't have an idea, if you have an idea, you can launch it quickly. If you don't have an idea, there's a lot of resources in there to show you like an idea that you might use or that you could work from. And then even if you have an existing business, like I know a lot of people who have existing businesses that have used some of my strategies, like the 7-day startup, my experiences with that. There's a 5-day challenge I did recently that we're going to talk about in a minute, I think, that has helped people to launch quickly. And even with or without a product, you can use these as kind of like, recipes, I think is the best way to describe them.
Yeah.
But they're basically almost always mine or someone else's experience using a formula that someone else created.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And so there's 2 questions actually to follow up on what you've been talking about. Number 1 as well. So, I mean, when we have an idea and then we turn it into a thing, like a product, right? I mean, that's something, I guess, you figured out, I figured out somehow. But then how did you actually go about marketing the actual products? Because, I don't know, did you have an audience before you, for example, launched Nomad Fly? Or, how did you go about the beginnings there to actually make your first dollar?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And, I asked James Altucher that question, and he asked me the same question back. He said, well, how did you do it? Yeah. So I didn't have an audience at all. I've still got my first post that I made in a Facebook group saying, do you guys, is anyone interested in finding, knowing more about cheap flights? At that time, I just thought maybe I could tell people when I found them, something like that, which is still a good business model, actually, and I might still do it. But, and then so I posted that in a group, and then I probably had about 70 people say yes in the group. So, and that's not everyone's that lucky from one post. I realize that that's pretty good. But I had to do that a few times in different groups. And then I actually manually asked people to join my list, which I had a MailChimp for free.
So you wrote them on Facebook, the people that commented on the post in the Facebook group, like, hey, do you want to sign up here? And then you learn more, kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's how I did it at first. And then what was really cool was a few of the people, so I did that. Then I sent them a payment link through MailChimp. Hey, here's the link if you want to buy it. At that time, it was $9. And they didn't know what they were buying, but I just said, I'll come up with something that's worth $9. And they're like, all right, we wouldn't do $6. And so I did that. And then one of the guys who bought it, this is what I'm saying, right? Every time you take a new step, it's like that what is that movie? I think it's one of the Indiana Joneses, and you have to step out and like let go of the thing behind you, and then another step will appear.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to keep taking the steps, and shit just like happens.
Yeah.
Like one guy that signed up did a podcast. He has a podcast, and he interviewed me for the podcast. And so his audience, a bunch of those people bought it. And then someone else, a friend of mine had some hookups with someone who does house sitting. And so I said, well, maybe we could do something together. I don't know what that looks like. I've never done a joint venture or affiliate stuff before. I don't know how to set any of that up. And she said, that would be great. We'd love to have you. If you work out how to, how we can do an affiliate thing, then we'll do it. So that took a couple of weeks of trying to work out how to do affiliate stuff. It's all just been like learning as I go, really, for the marketing. And it still is like that, by the way. Like even, 7 or 8 months later, it's still like that. Every day I'm like, crap, I need to find new affiliates. How can I find them?
Yeah.
And it's not like as much set and forget as I would like, but some of it is as well, like I've set it up so that every time someone purchases, my only job is to add them, approve their Facebook group thing.
Yeah.
So that's, it's definitely automated in some respects, but I would like to automate the marketing more, and that's possible, and that's what I'm working on now.
Yeah, cool. And so now your main thing that you're working on, or not your main thing, but one of the big things you're working on is Idea Hustle, the online course to get people from idea to execution to business, right? And
exactly.
So apart from the fact that we see a lot of people struggling with just getting started, but what do you actually think holds people back? Like, why are people, what keeps them from starting?
Yeah, it's interesting you ask that. I've been talking to a lot of people about this lately. The thing that, and this is such a weird thing, and most people initially will not think that this is your thing, but it's probably your thing. People have two fears, right? The fear of failure, and everyone's going to think I'm stupid because I tried something that didn't work. And also the fear of success. So, and the fear of success works like, and I have it too. I have it. I told my flatmate yesterday, I was like, oh my God, what if it actually worked? Like, I'm working on another project that's different than this. It's really big. And I'm like, oh my, the problem that people have with success is like, if it works, then your life will look different. You'll know yourself differently. Right now, you know yourself as a certain kind of person. You earn this much money. You have these kinds of friends. You do things in a certain way. But if you were to do things in a different way, if you had like a millionaire mindset, or if you were making a bunch more money, you would have to identify with yourself differently, and you don't know yourself as that person. So it's scary.
Yeah.
And so people find reasons, even me, like there's an opportunity that's staring me right in the face and I haven't done anything about it yet because I'm like, oh, but what if it worked? What would I do then? Like, who would I have to be? How would my friends relate to me if I had a bunch of money? What if I lost it all? Right? That's a really common one. What if I had a bunch of money and then I just lost it all because I screwed it up? Because I'm a screw up. Like, people think all these things. And so I think that's one of the main reasons that people don't get started. And those two things are probably, from what I've seen talking to people, those two things are the main two reasons. Underneath of all the other crap that you call it. This is why. No, those two reasons are the real reasons.
I also think one is that for a lot of people, the pain is not big enough yet. So they're still too comfortable in what they're doing right now. They're still too comfortable maybe in their 9 to 5, even though they don't really like it, but it's still kind of cushy, and it's safe. And so the pain, the fear is bigger than the pain, kind of, the fear of failing, the fear of whatever, of the unknown is bigger than the pain of being where they are. And I would probably add on that. But so then the big question is, and I mean, I sell my ebook course teaching people how to become, location dependent, and yet I wish I knew the numbers of people buying the ebook and then actually the ones actually doing it, because I give them everything, and they just have to follow the fucking steps. And yet, so many people don't do it. They might not even read the first page. They buy, I know myself. I've bought a lot of online courses and ebooks, and have just read the introduction or something or watched one video. But the question is, and I've been asking myself this question for a very long time, is how do I get people to start? How do I get people to gain momentum? How do I get people to take the first step? And what's your take on that?
You know, like that's an interesting question. I don't know that there's a way to get people to do that. If there was, I think, you know, if I knew it, I would be really, really rich.
With Idea Hustle, right? I mean, you're already. I mean, yeah, people buy the course, whatever. But then, how do people to actually like? How can you help? How can we help? Or, you know, to get people to actually do something, to take their idea and actually do something with it, rather than just sitting on it.
Well, okay. So I guess my response to that would be to start with something really, really small. The $9 thing for me was like, all right, if this fails, I'm not the hugest failure in the world.
Yeah.
It's just a small thing. No one will really know about it. I don't have to advertise it.
Yeah.
So I think like starting with something, if you start something, right, and it's like you're trying to get funding for like millions of dollars for this startup that you've done, that's not a great thing to start with. Like that's why most businesses fail, because like they try these massive things and you need investments or you want to like do this whole plan or whatever. No, I've never believed in that stuff. I always believe in starting really, really small and launching very, very quickly. I've never gone into, there was one business I went into debt with and that one didn't work out back in New Zealand. It was an importing business.
Right.
But like now I only recommend starting things that are going to be cash positive from day one. Like if you have to go into debt to do something, it's probably not worth starting. There's always another idea or another version of the thing that you're doing. And if you fail it, it's going to be not that big of a deal because you only wasted 3 or 5 or 10 days or whatever. Max 30 days you wasted on it, you know. Yeah. Some people try these things for 4 years and then they fail and then they've mortgaged their house. It's awful to think about. Like, don't do that. Just start something really small. Picking a niche is like the first thing that you'd be interested in, you know, working on. Starting a really small project in that niche, and then it just grows and grows and grows into other stuff that you can't even imagine right now. So yeah, I think people plan all this stuff out, and there's no need to. Just keep it small. Only plan the next 30 or 60 or 90 days in advance. Yeah. Because you get opportunities that you don't know right now, and they'll take you in different directions.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I admire about your work so much is that, like it's almost like every time I open Facebook, there's Beck launching something or like asking people about, you know, like she's building a new arc. Yeah, there's something happening there, you know. It's like there's always some sort of announcement or something that's happening that you're building on, that you're creating. Like I feel like you're just creating and you're experimenting a lot. And I think that's what's really awesome. It's just like, just going in there, you have an idea, you take it, you see if people react to it, if they're interested in it, you experiment, you know, you don't put, you know, a year into building a product, you put a few days, a few weeks into it, and then you test it right there with people, and then you see from there. And I think that's the way to do it for sure. And that's how I did it, and I would not recommend it otherwise. And that's why, to get to the point also now, this interview is because you're starting a challenge in a few days to help people to go from idea to making those first steps and turning that into a business. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think a lot of people might be interested in doing that.
Yeah. So
it's a free, right, for next week?
Free challenge, yeah. I like the word that you use, experiment. I'm trying to use that word more because it really is. All the stuff I do is just an experiment. Yeah. And if you think about it as just an experiment, you can't fail because experiments are designed to fail. Like that's how they work. So everything I do is I just think of as an experiment. If it doesn't work, then I'm like, great, the next thing might work. I'll try that. So the recently or last year I did a free challenge by a guy called Zach Spuckler online. And it was a 5-day challenge, and I watched the challenge, and it was for Nomad Fly. I thought, I really need some money. It's like the end of November. What am I going to do? It's like Christmas. I have to buy my girlfriend something for Christmas. I got no money. Well, I had some money, but you get to Christmas and you want some extra money. So I was like, what can I do? I'll do this 5-day challenge, and I'll just see if it works, right? It's an experiment. If I only have 10 people sign up to it, then at least I'll know that people don't really want it. So I did a flight hacking challenge, a 5-day flight hacking challenge. And it worked really, really well. And I thought, well, I mean, it worked really, really well. It made over $3,000 in 5 days. And it took me about a week to plan it. So that's a pretty good return on investment of time, I think. And it's not like one of those ginormous millionaire stories that you hear online all the time. I feel like sometimes those things can just sound like a bit much.
Yeah.
This is like really achievable for people, right? So my goal with this free challenge is for someone, maybe it's you if you're listening, to make, more than me, more than I made from mine before March 1st. So ideally you sign up to the challenge, you do the 5 days. I show you everything that I did for my challenge, and also how you could do it yourself as well. All the tools I used, all the email scripts, the whole sales funnel, everything that I used. And you can build that yourself in less than a couple of weeks and launch it in 5 days. And then if you make more than me, then there's like a bonus. But I think it would be so fun to see who's going to make more money than me. It's like I love a little bit of competition.
Yeah.
But speaking of competition, actually, right after I launched Nomad Fly, at that time I was house sitting in Phuket with my best friend Hannah, who you know. And Hannah, we were house sitting looking after some dogs, and every day I would go and do my video, and I would do my emails, and I would do this stuff. And Hannah watched me do the whole thing, right? Like she saw it was just us in the house with the dog, so we just were working, and I was doing this thing. And at the end, she saw like all the sales come through. So I made like 45 sales or something. And so when you make the sale, it's like ding, your phone like goes off. So my phone's like got all these notifications because I think we got a flight back to Bangkok. So when we got off the plane, you know how you turn the airplane mode off. So I turned it off, and my phone's like blowing up.
Bing, bing,
and
bing.
she's, that's amazing. And so I was like, yeah, you need to do one. And she's like, but I don't have a product. And this is why it's good that you brought that up before, because Hannah didn't have a product when she started it. She had a niche. So she does virtual assistant work, and she wanted to show people how to do that. So she had this idea, but she didn't have anything built. And I mean like nothing. She had nothing built. So I said, you can totally do it. Here's what I did. Bam, 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 bam. And she'd seen me do it, and she also had this recipe, right? And it was, I changed it a little bit from the one that I did online before, and she's also changed hers a little bit. But she did this, and she launched it like on the 23rd of December. Like, it's a time that most people think, no one's going to buy that. They're about to have Christmas. No, she made twice as much money as I did.
Wow.
And she didn't have a product. And so how she did it was what we were talking about before. She actually pre-sold it. So she had a bunch of people who paid her, and they were going to launch. And it was kind of good that it was Christmas time as well. So they were going to start in the new year on January 2nd. And so she spent that whole week or two just like building frantically to get something ready for these people on January 2nd, and she did it.
Awesome.
You have to once you make it happen, or that's
bit of pressure. Yeah, but yeah, it's awesome.
But yeah, so during this challenge that's coming up, it starts on the 15th. So that's
15th of January.
Wednesday.
Yep.
15th of January. I'm going to show you all the stuff that I did, all the stuff that Hannah did, without a product. If you have an idea, if you don't have an idea, if you just have a business and you're interested in seeing how it worked. And the purpose of the challenge is not only to show you all this stuff, which is really valuable, obviously, but also to show you that this stuff will actually work, and it will work for anyone. And like I said about Idea Hustle, there's a crap ton of different challenges inside of Idea Hustle right now. And what I'm doing is releasing something new every time. It might be a Facebook ad thing. It might be like a training on ConvertKit. It might be like different things that you need to launch your thing quickly. And then there's also challenges that we do. So you can pick a challenge that you want to do for that month, and then the group will keep you accountable for that challenge. So you get to try new things new ideas, or just build your current idea or expand it out, think of new ideas for your idea, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit inception-y, but
cool.
yeah.
So where can people sign up if they want to take part in that free challenge?
They can sign up at, actually, why don't we just put a link underneath?
I'll definitely put the link just underneath the video. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I might just put the link right here in the video as well. And all that jazz. Cool. So starting Monday, people can take their idea to business, and they learn how you basically built these free challenges that in the end brought you quite a bit of money. And I think that's really awesome and fair to say. It's like, you get all these products, people telling you, oh, this is how I made, 100,000 in my last launch and stuff like that. And, in many cases it sounds awesome, but maybe that's not even what we're looking for. We're just looking for building a tiny product and making a bit of money,
Yeah. Because once one, I guarantee you, it's like so addictive.
Yeah.
And you just want to create more and more little things that you could sell.
Yeah.
And in Idea Hustle, most of the stuff is stuff I try to do all of it myself as well. So I'm not just like telling people to do things that I haven't done.
Yeah.
So you get to see more like my experience and also other people's experience with following these recipes.
Yeah.
And they're like real results. All the statistics are in there, and you can see the sales emails and all that stuff too.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Beck, for giving us a bit of insight on how to go about all this thing and telling from your own experience and being really honest and transparent about it. So thanks so much for this. And yeah, if you guys have any more questions or comments or whatever, just put it down in the comments. Both Beck and I will be making sure that we'll get back to you guys. So thanks, Beck. Have a lovely day.
Challenge.
Yeah, sweet.
Thanks,
cool.
Yeah.
All right. Take care. See ya.